In Washington, a fierce and personal battle has erupted over the Arctic Frost provision, a small clause in a massive funding bill that's ignited a firestorm on Capitol Hill. The provision, born from a Department of Justice investigation into lawmakers, grants certain senators an unprecedented legal tool, dividing Congress and raising questions about power, privacy, and self-interest. The House united to demand its repeal, but the Senate is locked in a tense stalemate, exposing deep distrust between branches and parties. This story unpacks how a hidden legislative maneuver became a national controversy, challenging the very principles of accountability and public trust. The Arctic Frost provision, officially titled Requiring Senate Notification for Senate Data, is a little-known but highly controversial measure tucked into recent legislation. At its core, the provision allows any U.S. senator who becomes the target of a Department of Justice investigation to sue the federal government for damages, specifically, up to $500,000 per senator, with the payout coming directly from taxpayer funds. This means that if a senator's personal or official data is subpoenaed or accessed by the DOJ, that senator can seek significant financial compensation, regardless of the investigation's outcome. What's even more striking is how the provision made its way into law. Rather than being openly debated or discussed in committee hearings, it was quietly inserted into a massive must-pass government funding bill. This legislative maneuver allowed it to bypass the usual process of public scrutiny and open debate, effectively shielding it from the attention of both the media and the American public, until after it had already become law. Senate Majority Leader John Thune is widely credited with orchestrating the provision's inclusion. Thune and his allies argue that the measure is a necessary safeguard against executive branch overreach, especially after several senators' personal data was subpoenaed in recent DOJ investigations. They claim it's about protecting the independence and privacy of the legislative branch, ensuring that senators aren't unfairly targeted or intimidated by federal prosecutors. Supporters of the provision insist it's a vital check on the power of the Department of Justice, preventing potential abuses and ensuring that lawmakers can do their jobs without fear of retaliation. However, critics see things very differently. They argue that the law is a self-serving windfall, designed to benefit a small group of senators at the expense of taxpayers, and that it sets a dangerous precedent for special protections for elected officials. The law is written with extreme specificity. It applies only to senators who are directly involved in the Arctic Frost investigation, not to the general public, other government officials, or even all members of Congress. This narrow focus has raised eyebrows, with many questioning why such a targeted measure was necessary and who exactly stands to benefit. The secretive way the provision was passed, combined with its limited scope, has sparked outrage among watchdog groups, journalists, and ordinary citizens alike. Many see it as a personal payout for a select few senators, disguised as a principled stand for legislative independence. The backlash has been swift, with calls for greater transparency and demands to revisit or repeal the law. Now, as more details come to light, the provision's secretive, backroom origins have become a central part of the controversy. The debate over Arctic frost is no longer just about legal protections, it's about trust, accountability, and the integrity of the legislative process itself. Lawmakers from both parties are furious, calling the provision a blatant conflict of interest, senators writing themselves a $500,000 check from public funds. The outrage is palpable on both sides of the aisle, with some calling it one of the most egregious examples of self-enrichment in recent memory. Critics argue that this move undermines public trust in government, fueling the perception that elected officials are more interested in personal gain than serving their constituents. The sheer size of the payout has only intensified the anger, with many questioning how such a large sum could be justified, especially at a time when so many Americans are struggling financially. The law's retroactive nature, covering past actions, is seen as an abuse of power and a way to rewrite the rules for personal gain. By making the provision apply to previous years, lawmakers have effectively erased any accountability for their own conduct, sparking accusations of corruption and manipulation. Legal experts warn that such retroactive measures set a dangerous precedent, allowing those in power to shield themselves from consequences whenever it suits them. This has left many wondering what other hidden provisions might be lurking in future legislation. Many were blindsided, learning of the provision only after it became law, deepening feelings of betrayal. Even some senior lawmakers admitted they had no idea the clause was included, raising serious questions about transparency and oversight in the legislative process. Staffers and aides scrambled to understand how such a significant measure could slip through unnoticed, while the public watched in disbelief as details emerged. Its secretive insertion into a must-pass bill has become a symbol of everything wrong with backroom politics. Critics say this is exactly the kind of opaque deal-making that erodes faith in democracy, where crucial decisions are made behind closed doors, away from public scrutiny. The lack of open debate has only fueled suspicions that lawmakers are hiding more than just this one provision. Both parties now accuse each other of complicity as the provision's bipartisan origins unravel in public. Finger-pointing has become the norm, with Democrats blaming Republicans and vice versa, but leaked emails and internal memos suggest that leaders from both sides were aware of the deal. The resulting chaos has deepened partisan divides, even as it exposes the shared interests that sometimes unite lawmakers against the public interest. The episode has reinforced the public's worst suspicions that Congress protects its own, regardless of party. Polls show a sharp drop in confidence in government, with many Americans saying they feel powerless to hold their representatives accountable. Protests have erupted outside the Capitol as citizens demand greater transparency and an end to what they see as a culture of impunity. The backlash is a rare moment of unity against self-dealing and legislative secrecy. For once, lawmakers, activists, and ordinary citizens are standing together, calling for reforms to prevent similar abuses in the future. The controversy has sparked a national conversation about ethics in government and whether real change is finally possible. The House of Representatives responded with unprecedented unity, voting unanimously to repeal the Arctic frost provision. Lawmakers from every political stripe condemned it as legislative self-dealing and an affront to taxpayers. The speed and unanimity of the House's action sent a powerful message: special financial perks for lawmakers are unacceptable. The repeal bill's passage put immense pressure on the Senate to follow suit. House members called the provision a swampy backroom deal and a get-rich-quick scheme. Their vote was more than legislative, it was a moral stand for public trust. The House's decisive move shifted the spotlight to the Senate, where entrenched interests threatened to block reform. The stage was set for a dramatic Senate showdown. When the House's repeal bill reached the Senate, consensus collapsed. Senator Martin Heinrich tried to fast-track the repeal, but Senator Lindsey Graham blocked it, vowing to use the law to sue over what he called unlawful DOJ subpoenas. Republican leaders, led by John Thune, countered with a compromise to amend rather than repeal the law, but Democrats blocked that too. Both parties vetoed each other's solutions, leaving the Senate paralyzed. The floor debate grew heated, with accusations of political gamesmanship and institutional betrayal. The House's unity was replaced by Senate gridlock as each side dug in. The result: total legislative deadlock. Republicans defend the Arctic frost provision as a vital check on a politicized DOJ, not a personal payday. Senators like Lindsey Graham argue the law deters future executive overreach by putting a real financial cost on misconduct. They insist the fight is about principle, protecting lawmakers' rights and the separation of powers. Republicans also accuse Democrats of hypocrisy, noting that Minority Leader Schumer initially supported the provision as a potential shield for his own party. For supporters, the law is a necessary defense in an era of political weaponization, even if the optics are poor. They argue that repealing it would leave Congress vulnerable to future abuses. To them, the provision is about institutional protection, not personal enrichment. Democrats and some Republicans see the provision as indefensible. Lawmakers should never profit from their office, especially with taxpayer money. Senators Martin Heinrich and Gary Peters lead the charge, calling the law corrupt and the process that created it undemocratic. They argue the provision creates a privileged class of senators, undermining equal justice. Democrats demand a full repeal, rejecting any compromise as legitimizing a shady backroom deal. They insist existing legal avenues are sufficient for any senator who feels wronged. The push for repeal is framed as a necessary correction to restore public trust. For opponents, nothing short of erasing the law will repair the damage. Senate Majority Leader Thune's compromise, letting senators sue but sending any damages to the Treasury, was swiftly blocked by Democrats. The proposal aimed to separate principle from profit, but opponents argued the core problem was the creation of a special legal path for lawmakers. Democrats insisted that only a full repeal could restore integrity, rejecting tweaks as attempts to salvage a flawed law. The compromise's failure cemented the stalemate, with both sides entrenched. The episode showed just how deep the distrust runs and how hard it is to fix a broken process. With no agreement, the Senate remained deadlocked. The controversy only grew. The Arctic frostbite isn't just political theater. It's a test of who Congress really serves. What's unfolding on Capitol Hill may seem distant, but its impact ripples far beyond the marble halls and ornate chambers. Every decision made here shapes the rules that govern daily life, for millions of Americans, from small business owners to working families. This isn't just about one bill or one controversy, it's about the fundamental question of whether lawmakers are accountable to the people or to their own interests. Laws that benefit lawmakers at public expense erode trust and reinforce cynicism about government. When citizens see politicians protecting themselves instead of the public, it deepens the divide between Main Street and Washington. People begin to wonder if their voices matter or if the system is rigged for the powerful and well-connected. This skepticism isn't just abstract, it affects voter turnout, civic engagement, and the very health of our democracy. The House's unanimous repeal was a rare stand for accountability, but Senate gridlock shows how a few can block reform. It's a vivid reminder that even when the public and their representatives agree, entrenched interests and procedural hurdles can stall progress. The spectacle of empty seats and heated arguments isn't just frustrating, it's a symbol of how difficult real change can be, even when the need is obvious. For ordinary Americans, it's a frustrating reminder that even obvious wrongs can persist in Washington. The sense of powerlessness grows when headlines repeat the same story. Gridlock, delay, and a lack of accountability. People across the country are left asking, if this can't be fixed, what can? The outcome will signal whether Congress can police its own ethics, or if self-interest always wins. This moment is a crossroads, testing whether elected officials are willing to put the public good above personal gain. The decision will echo in future debates, shaping how Congress is viewed for years to come. The controversy has already left a mark, exposing deep institutional fault lines. It's revealed the challenges of reforming a system where those in power must vote to limit their own privileges. The divisions aren't just political, they're about the very nature of public service and responsibility. Whether repealed or not, the provision's legacy is a renewed debate about ethics, power, and public trust. Americans are talking about what they expect from their leaders and demanding higher standards. The conversation has moved from the halls of Congress to kitchen tables and community meetings across the nation. The fight has forced Congress and the country to confront uncomfortable questions about who our laws are really for. It's a moment of reckoning, challenging both politicians and citizens to reflect on the values that should guide our democracy. As the stalemate drags on, the demand for accountability grows louder. The public's patience is wearing thin, and the pressure on lawmakers is mounting. People are watching, waiting, and refusing to let the issue fade away. The Arctic frost saga is far from over, but its lessons are already clear. It's a story about the struggle for integrity in government, and a reminder that democracy depends on vigilance, engagement, and the courage to demand better from those in power.